Germany had survived the war, but the winter of 1946 to 47 nearly finished what bombs and fire had begun. Across the ruins of cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Dresden, snow fell endlessly, covering shattered buildings and burned streets with a cold, white silence. Temperatures plunged far below freezing and refused to rise. This was not a short storm or a passing cold wave. It was one of the harshest winters Europe had seen in decades, and for Germany, already broken and exhausted, it became a fight for survival. Millions of people lived in buildings without roofs, windows, or doors. Entire families crowded into single rooms, blocking holes in the walls with blankets, wood, or anything they could find. Coal, once the backbone of German industry and daily life, was almost impossible to obtain. Mines struggled to operate, transport lines were damaged, and frozen railways made delivery unreliable. Electricity failed repeatedly. Nights were long, dark, and bitterly cold. People burned furniture, books, even door frames just to keep a small fire alive for a few hours. Children slept fully dressed, hats pulled over their ears, waking up to ice forming on the inside of walls. For the elderly and the sick, the cold was often a silent death sentence. Food shortages made everything worse. Ration cards promised survival, but reality delivered hunger. Daily calorie intake dropped dangerously low. Bread was mixed with substitutes, potatoes were frozen and rotting, and meat was almost non-existent. Mothers watered down soup so it could last another day. Fathers walked for miles through snow-covered roads to trade watches, wedding rings, or family heirlooms for a few kilos of coal or a sack of turnips. Black markets flourished, not out of greed, but desperation. Cigarettes became currency. A single piece of chocolate could buy favors or food. Public transport collapsed under the cold. Trams stopped running. Buses froze in place. Trains were stranded in open fields. Passengers forced to walk for hours to reach shelter. Factories that were meant to restart the economy stood idle, unable to operate without fuel or power. Without work, morale collapsed further. Many Germans later said this winter felt worse than the war. During the bombing raids, there had been an enemy to fear, a moment when the sirens stopped and survival felt possible. In 1946, there were no sirens, no warning, only the endless cold that seeped into bones and minds. Illness spread rapidly. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, and diseases linked to malnutrition claimed thousands of lives quietly. Hospitals were overcrowded and underheated. Doctors lacked medicine. Nurses worked in freezing rooms, wrapped in coats, trying to save patients whose bodies no longer had the strength to fight. Children were sent to the countryside whenever possible, hoping farms might offer warmth and food. But rural areas suffered too. Snow-buried fields, livestock died, and farmers had little to spare. Families were torn apart, not by war, but by the hope that distance might mean survival. Psychological exhaustion became widespread. People who had endured years of conflict, loss, and destruction now felt stripped of dignity. Suicide rates increased. Letters from the period speak of hopelessness, of people questioning whether rebuilding was even possible. And yet, amid the suffering, small acts of humanity persisted. Neighbors shared fires, taking turns keeping them alive through the night. Strangers helped push carts through frozen streets. Women organized communal kitchens. Children scavenged together for scraps of coal fallen from trains. When spring finally arrived in 1947, it felt less like a season and more like rescue. Snow melted to reveal streets still broken, cities still scarred, and a population weakened but alive. Tens of thousands had died during the winter, and millions carried its effects for the rest of their lives. But the experience changed Germany. The memory of frozen rooms and empty plates shaped a collective determination that survival alone was not enough. Stability, warmth, and food became moral priorities. The winter of 1946 to 47 became a turning point, a moment when suffering forced society to rethink responsibility, rebuilding, and solidarity. It was a season that did not just test Germany's strength, but stripped life down to its rawest form, leaving behind a lesson written in cold, hunger, and endurance.